So this is a 1996 Fender Jag-Stang in Sonic Blue. And I think it's the third year this was made. It's had the pick guard changed to a tortoiseshell look. Of course, Kurt Cobain's signature guitar. And this one's set up a little differently than the norm. You can see the strings have been routed straight through this tailpiece, and usually they go that way, go wrap around and go under. But apparently this is another setup that people do on this, where they lock the tremolo and then route the string straight through, and I was surprised it actually plays pretty well this way, at least on this one. Sighting down the neck on this one, I don't see too much bend in the neck, so I'll measure the relief. Fret at the 17th fret, and then check with the feeler gauge at the 8th. And this is starting with 0.010, and it's got more relief than that. So I generally like to have a little less than that. So we'll check out the truss rod. If you just keep the capo on there at the first fret and loosen the strings, maybe 2 or 3 turns, that's enough. Flip the guitar over, let the capo hang off the edge of the table, at least this is how I do it, and loosen. Pops up where that 4th screw is loosened. Carefully turn it over, holding the neck and the body. And if you're careful not to twist the strings up too much, it'll kind of just go back on there and tune right back up again. Always nice to look at the neck pocket and just see what's going on in there. Good to keep it clean. And this is kind of interesting. It says ST95. I know that the Japanese made guitars usually have a designation stamped. Actually, sorry, it's JT95. I didn't realize the Jag-Stang had its own letter and numeral designation. So maybe JT is Jag-Stang somehow. And confirmation of what year I thought it was made, November 96. And that's already a little buried, but it's still got room to go. So we want to loosen first a little bit, just a little turn to loosen, and then we can tighten a bit. That's about 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn. We'll see what that gets us. Now we can tighten it up. Okay, tuned up, capo back on at the 1st, checking the relief in the neck at the 8th, and we are at 0.007, which is one of my favorite amounts of relief. So checking the action, looks like pretty good level, 060 or thereabouts, except the low E and the A string are a little higher, but pretty close. And playing on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th frets just to see how the low frets are. Sounds good. No buzzing. In the middle of the neck, good. Going up higher, pretty good. A little kind of chorusy weird thing on the high E there. Oh. So the string was just out of its slot on the high E saddle. And there we go. No more chorus. So looking at the bridge down there, I noticed that the string action got progressively higher as I got to the lower strings. So the action is adjusted either on this side or on that side, so you're going to affect kind of all the strings at once. That's why E, A, and D are a little higher up than the other strings. So the way this Jag-Stang bridge works, you can see I've taken out the bridge piece because I wanted to see why it wasn't adjusting like I normally can. Normally you just put your Allen wrench in that hole and tighten or loosen, and it brings up and down this bridge piece. And somebody has done a mod here, and maybe this is a known mod, maybe they came up with it themselves. Seems to have worked pretty well, but they basically wrapped these bridge pieces with some tape. So I think I finally figured out what that little mod they did was for. This bridge piece, in the normal way this comes stock, you can, if you're not familiar with the Jag-Stang, if you move it, if you put some pressure on it, this bridge piece will move, I don't know, maybe about 1/8 of an inch back and forth. And I believe that is done to sort of facilitate use of the tremolo. When you got the tremolo on and you're bending, this kind of floats back and forth a little bit with it. I've never liked that because when you do your intonation, the fact that this thing can move is going to obviously throw off the string length every time it goes back or forth. And to me that just says it's not going to be in perfect intonation all the time. So what this person did was, by wrapping those posts that are underneath here with tape, they have made it so it's solid. Those posts are solid in those holes now, and this thing will not move at all. And since they locked this tremolo anyway, obviously they're not going to be using a trem on it, and they don't need that thing floating around. And this setup should provide for a much more stable tuning on this guitar. If you're not familiar with Jag-Stang and setting them up, they're not always the easiest. They are a little finicky, and especially with tuning, yeah, they have their problems. I prefer to have the tremolo either very tight or locked down like this, so that it just kind of takes it out of the equation. And this seems to be a fairly good mod. It turns out that you can still raise and lower this bridge using the Allen adjustments, and so that's what I've done here. And I was able to get the action right where I wanted it, raising and lowering on both sides until it's 060 is the measurement at the 12th fret, all the way across, and seems to be playing good that way. Here's one thing I noticed you may come across sometimes when I was playing up high on the neck. None of the other strings, just the low E. Turns out there's not enough clearance between this pickup and the low E string. So I'm assuming if I lower that pickup on that side and give the E string a little more clearance. Yep. Now one thing I will tell you about these Jag-Stangs you need to watch out for is when you go to adjust the bridge height for the action, it is not an easy deal to get that. First of all, to find the right size Allen wrench, and then even once you've got it, to get it in there and to take. So you got to play around with it. Don't get frustrated and you know, bash it too much. It's going to take a little work to find the right size and to get it to actually make contact correctly, because the Allen screw's buried in there. So you got to just play around with it. So this thing's playing pretty well all over the neck. The only thing left to do is set the intonation. One thing I will mention about setting intonation on Jag-Stangs is that sharp of the 12th. It takes a lot more movement on these saddles to change the intonation than it does on some other saddles you'll come across. And I think it's because they're such a big round saddle that they have a lot of contact space with the string there, and to actually get the tuning or intonation to change at the 12th fret, you've got to really move them. You know, on most guitars, a few turns is going to really affect the intonation of the 12th. But with the Jag-Stang and those kind of barrel saddles it's got, it takes a little more turning. You saw how much I just turned that one, and that's how much it took to get it to where it needed to be, just about. Just something to know about them.